hear about. But Gemma, if you'd just like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what you do, that would be fab.
Absolutely. So I am the digital marketing executive at the Glenturret Distillery. So I work in the brands team. I look after the website, the social, but also help out with the wider brands team. It's been a big year for us this year with a relaunch. So it's been all hands on deck as well, getting ready for that in amongst COVID.
Well, that must have been quite a year to do a brand relaunch, because I guess most of the kind of the playbook for how you do that has probably gone out the window. But I'm sure we're going to hear a bit more about that. Just one thing that I'm asking everybody that I'm doing these interviews with is, tell us what you like best about what you do, and is there a story to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think working in the whiskey industry in general definitely sort of captures you. We were speaking earlier about I started at the Glenturret as a seasonal tour guide in between my studies at university. And when I started, I didn't know much about whiskey, but within the first few months, you're really invested in it. You sort of fall in love with not just the drink itself, but the story and the history. And Glenturret's certainly not lacking in that. So I think I've loved sort of working my way through different roles at the Glenturret and really uh, being part of its history, especially right now when we're sort of uncovering ourselves again in this rebranding, and being part of telling that story of the Glenturret, I think is quite magic.
That's nice. As Dundee and Angus Chamber of Commerce, it would be utterly remiss of us not to ask what your favourite thing is about Dundee and Angus. Do you have something?
I do, yeah. I was actually thinking about this because I started to spend more time in Dundee, Dundee especially when my partner was finishing off some studies there. And I don't want to say, but I was completely taken aback by how many great places to eat and drink in Dundee there is. And there are some, more well known, some not as well known. And I think the bar culture in Dundee is great. And there's a lot of fab restaurants of, different types of cuisine, different sizes, for almost any occasion. My partner lived just off the Perth Road, so I have a lot of faves on the Perth Road, but um, Art Bar was always great. It was a great little place to go. It had such a great atmosphere to it. Completely different to the wine press, down by the water, down by the new V&A, and completely different again to the likes of Draffin's, the little sort of secret bar, which again, the atmosphere there is great. And I think that there's so many great places, and I know a lot of these places might not necessarily be open or open as they would be right now, but certainly when we get back to a little bit of normality, I really would encourage everyone to have a little peek into the bar culture and the restaurants in Dundee and discover a little bit more, because I was so pleasantly surprised by how many great places there were.
Yeah, I think the changes in the last, not just the last few years, maybe a little bit longer than that now, but I mean, I can remember when, often Dundonians would have to travel up to Perth because there were some just absolutely stunning restaurants in Perth. And then, one by one, Dundee began to get some real gems of its own. And, you're reminding me of places like Draffin's and others that I think, oh gosh, it's been too long since we were
Yeah.
able to go and enjoy that. So yeah, a bit nice to remember about all these fabulous places we've got. The next thing that I'm asking all of our interviewees, Gemma, is what's your favourite time of year and why?
I do love summer. I love long days. I love the light at 4 a.m. until 11 p.m. I love that. I think it just allows you to explore Scotland so much more when you've got so many more hours in the day to do so. But I think my favourite time of year at the distillery is right now. I think, like so many other places, when the leaves are turning, there's almost a little bit of a nice, coordination with the whiskey and the leaves. And yeah, so I do love summer, but I think right now is a pretty special time at the distillery.
Brilliant. I guess we'll have to jump on your social media and see some of those photos, because you're absolutely right. It's such a beautiful place, isn't it? And even when it's stormy, like we've just had quite a stormy weekend, but for me, the leaves were dancing all around our street, and it was just fabulous. So yeah, I bet there's lots. I bet your grounds people are not quite so keen on all of that. But
I love it though when it's been a storm and the water, you can hear the water raging behind the distillery. It's again, it just adds that little bit of atmosphere and a little bit of character to it.
So we've been obviously doing these interviews for a long time this year, and one of my next questions was written, and I've been having to caveat it constantly, but I don't really need to do much of that at the moment, because the question is, what's the thing you're missing most during lockdown?
Yeah, I think being at the distillery more, being around all your team more, I think probably across the board everyone's missing that. Having that direct contact with people, just being able to lean over and say, "Oh, just had this email," or "Just thought about this," and just having those in the moment conversations that you can't necessarily get quite as easily online. I think that's definitely what I would say I miss the most. I mean, I think we're all getting there now when it comes to getting in touch with each other, and it was always a bit of a change going from just being in the office one day to being at home. But I do think that's one of the things that we all miss, whether it be with work or social. I think we all miss having those little conversations, little just laughs here and there that you just maybe don't get quite as easily online.
Yeah, I definitely share all of that. I miss all of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's you can often get your head down and kind of get on with a lot of work while you're kind of working remotely, but it's definitely not the same as that kind of bouncing ideas off colleagues. And when that leads me really nicely, I suppose, to the next question, which started off in, when I think back in sort of April, and it says, "Has your work changed during the COVID crisis?" Now, clearly nothing virtually is the same as it was earlier on in the year. So I'm taking it as a given that your work has changed, but I'm just interested in what the changes during the crisis have meant to just the job that you actually do, and what the future is going to look like, you think?
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, there's been a lot of changes. I mean, at the Glenturret, we had a lot of changes planned for the year. Anyway, we had a brand relaunch, both the brand visuals and a whole new range of whiskey. And we had big plans for that, big plans for a big party to celebrate that, which obviously didn't quite work out that way. So it's been a year of really working to work with the changes in order to still be able to have this brand relaunch and host it in a way that is meaningful and that really represents the Glenturret well, while being able to do that online. So I think we have to look at different ways of getting in touch with people, look at different ways of getting that whiskey to people, and of welcoming people to the new brand, which was tricky. But the Glenturret has seen a lot of different obstacles over the years. We've been going since at least 1763, so I'm sure this is not the trickiest thing the Glenturret has ever had to deal with over the years.
And when we are more freely able to get out and about, what would be on your lockdown escape bucket list?
um, I think in general it will just be nice to be able to see people that maybe not necessarily we've been able to see recently, see more friends. A couple of weddings have been postponed, which we're looking forward to hopefully doing next year. But yeah, I think just doing things like going to different bars, restaurants. I mean, we are able to do that just now, but doing it a little bit more freely. I think the spontaneity of being able to say, should we go for supper tonight, or shall we go out for a drink, or shall we meet you here? I think that will be really lovely to be able to do that again, just a little bit more spontaneously.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if you had a message for people out there about, you know, the world of work in business, just something that you've learned, what would it be?
I mean, it's maybe seems quite obvious, but I think just this especially has shown us how important communication is, and taught us how to communicate in new ways. But I think it's also important for us to remember to just touch base with each other, you know, just make sure that we're all communicating well in business, but also just reach out and, you know, make sure we're all doing okay. I think that's so important in business as well, to just touch base with your colleagues and make sure, especially at times like this, that everyone is genuinely keeping well and not just start of an email, hope you're keeping well.
Absolutely. And how would people get in touch with you if they fancied a chat or wanted to follow up on anything?
So you can go onto our website if you want to have a little bit more of a look at the whiskies that we have or the tours that we offer, at theglenturret.com, or I am on LinkedIn if anyone wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can keep in touch with us on social media, at the Glenturret on Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on, and we're looking forward to telling more people about the Glenturret and what's happening there, and look forward to coming in and seeing you properly. But we'll have to pick our time of year because I quite fancy the autumn. It sounds really amazing, actually. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. I really, really do appreciate it. And thanks very much, Gemma.